Hello, Yes But Why listeners. This is your host, Amy Jordan. Welcome to Yes But Why, episode 265, my interview with DC-based performer Karen Lange. But first, I want to tell you about our sponsors. Yes But Why podcast is brought to you by Audible. Sign up for your 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/yesbutwhy. You get a free audiobook download as well as access to hundreds of books and podcasts. And that's just what's included with your membership. Go now to audibletrial.com/yesbutwhy to sign up and get your Audible account today. You can listen to books about whatever topic you want any time of day or night. It's everything to me lately. You got to do it. Get Audible. Yes But Why is also sponsored by podcastcadet.com. Podcastcadet.com is the company my husband and I started to help new podcasters find the right path for them. Go to podcastcadet.com and connect with us, and we will answer any question you have or help you make any connection you need to make. Your first consultation is free. But then after, when you're completely wowed by how much we want to help you, you can use promo code YBY20 to get 20% off the first service or workshop you buy. Let us help you. Podcastcadet.com. This week on Yes But Why, I chat with Karen Lange, an actor, singer, improviser, and producer from the Washington, D.C. area. We chat about her theater company, Pinky Swear Productions, and all the cool shows she's been a part of. We talk about musicals, auditions, and the fact that Karen has taken over 100 hours of online classes since the COVID shutdown started. Wow! Tune in for a great conversation. I now present to you Yes But Why, episode 265. Karen Lange on staying creatively active and motivated. Enjoy! I'm Amy Jordan, and this is Yes But Why podcast. Yeah.
I was growing up in Nashua, New Hampshire, and, not a ton of enrichment activities for the creative, nerdy types. But when I was in second grade, a program started at my school called Odyssey of the Mind. It was Olympics of the Mind back then, but then there were trademark issues. So Odyssey of the Mind is a creative problem-solving competition. And so they had like lots of different things. You could build a little vehicle that people could ride in. You could build a balsa wood structure that held a lot of weight. But I liked the one that they called Classics, which you wrote a 7-minute play. And it was all kids doing it. So, I had a bunch of other like second through fourth graders in my team. When the problem we got that year was Moby Dick. And so we basically had to, have a bunch of elements in the play. Like you had to have a scrimshaw that you made. You had to have, like some whaling terminology. You had to have certain characters in there. And so we read Moby Dick, and then we wrote our 7-minute play, and we made all the stuff that had to go in it. And so there was like pirate wear on, and I got to be not Captain Ahab, but a captain that Ishmael talks to after the disaster on the Pequod. And I remember having a role in which I comically fall asleep and snore. I remember we wrote lines like, we had the ghost from Wailing Past, Wailing Present, and Wailing Future in it. So, I remember writing a joke back then that was like, I am the ghost of Wailing Present, long present. No, you're present. Oh, what did you get me? So sort of a riff on the long past, your past. But anyway, so we did that. And that started, I did that program all the way through senior year of high school. And, every year we would get a different problem. One of my favorites was Pompeii, where you had to create, Roman graffiti, and you had to have a volcano somewhere. So we made it in this hair salon where a hairdresser had been like blasted back in the past and then became, notable in Pompeii for making these volcano haircuts. But all of the hairspray that he used caused the eruption. And so I got to write this epic poem that I recited about an angry goddess who did not like these, CFCs. and the cool thing was the next year they made an epic poem a requirement. And so that was either a coincidence or it was that awesome.
And I bet it was. I bet it was.
Yeah. And the final year was Alice in Wonderland. And we wrote a musical set in a dungeon. And Alice was the dungeon keeper. And the songs were all things I wrote that were parodies of songs that I listened to. So they had things like They Might Be Giants and The Smiths, which I'm sure none of the judges were like in on, but that was fun. And that was a big sort of progenitor of my interest in improvising music. Was I've written parody songs since I was a little kid. So so that was a big one toward creativity. I mean, those were the most fun things we did every year.
Man, I am from Boston, and I definitely heard about Odyssey of the Mind, and now I'm real sad that I didn't do it because it sounds super awesome.
Yeah, when your kid gets to school, if they have it, I totally recommend it. It was great.
Oh, yeah. I'm not actually still in the New England area.
Oh, but they might have it in Austin. I mean, they have it down in Virginia where I am now. Oh. So, yeah, I actually signed up and went and judged some stuff like for nostalgia a couple of years ago.
Whoa.
So that was fun.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why not support those kids?
Why not? Somebody had to for me.
Yeah, totally, right? Plus, there's something great about the enthusiasm of an improv audience that's different than others. Mm-hmm. It's like extra, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because you're so used to improv, so hit or miss that you like always just, no matter what happens, it could be the worst show you've ever watched and you're still like, yes, good job, you guys. Oh my gosh. Do you guys watch that? I watched that. Yes.
That happened.
Guys, we were just at a show.
I'm also a very generous laugher because I find a lot funny. And so my friends are always happy I'm in the audience because they'll hear me. It's a loud laugh. Mm-hmm. And so for the teams that are not doing well when I'm watching improv, I feel like it's a gift I've given them because when something is funny, I will laugh at it. They're not pity laughs. I will laugh at something that they did that was funny. And so they'll know they got at least one person when they did a thing that was good.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Oh man, Odyssey of the Mind. I'm like super into that. I did, they had us create inventions, right? And then they put them out in the Science Museum in Boston. And like we all got to put them on display. I think cool, but I also think like adults came around and like stole our ideas. Cause like no joke, my thing was on the market the next year. And I was like, that doesn't seem fair.
That was like an early Shark Tank, only it was just thieves.
It really was. It really was. Cause like kids can't do anything about it. And like nobody's keeping track. Like I legitimately did not actually keep track. I could have invented something that already was invented, right? So, I mean, there has to be somebody else who like checks it, right, for you. Or you're believing an 8-year-old who's like, yeah, I made sure no one ever did. And this is before the internet, right?
I have my own patent attorney, so just, trust me on this.
Listen, it is or it isn't, but it doesn't matter, okay? Can we just move forward?
Well, and one thing I wanted to mention about OM was that they had like a section of the competition was also called the spontaneous competition. So that was like improv starting way back then when you would be given a like, for Moby Dick, like name all the whales that you can. And so there's like, there's like the blue whale and the humpback, but then you can be like Harry, the whale that lived down the street and never mowed his lawn. Like those kinds of things you could say and it would actually get you points. So I think that's where I think that was like the first like real improv that I did.
It's funny. I'm I'm glad that like worked in the competition and they weren't like, actually that was incorrect. I appreciate the creativity that they were open to, because like it was only later in my life that I realized that, you could be so wild with your creativity. That being said, I went to an all-girls Catholic school, so it was very strict. And when we asked, they begged for a theater teacher our senior year, they gave us a 19-year-old girl who had us do like French farces, and it was like fine, and it was good, and I was glad to do it. But I was like, this isn't really what I meant when I was trying to get a theater
the
thing.
set is just a series of doors we keep popping out of.
There's a lot of mirrors, you know what I mean? There's one of our in a cage. Like, I don't know.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah. It was all legit, you know what I mean? Like super highbrow. But so anyway, tell me more about the parody songs. Cause like I only recently got into it because I was teaching kids at comedy camp, and it seemed like the most relatable thing to do. But like, how did you get into it? You're like writing these songs, and like, how did your brain even like say, hey, let's do this?
Yeah, I don't know because with musical improv and with these parody songs, they just come into my head and they just go. And so I remember making them up when I was a kid. I made a parody out of God Save the Queen, and, made my parents laugh. And I still remember what it was. And, it's completely silly and goofy, and it's something a little kid would write. But that's where I started. And then I started Weird Al-ing a lot of things. So my, places that I've worked have had me do parody songs for like Christmas parties and stuff. I usually do one for, if I'm in somebody's wedding, I will do one for them at as like a gift at their rehearsal dinner. I've done them for people's birthdays, and if somebody, it's like something I can't stop because if somebody starts posting something and refers to a song, I will immediately sit there and type a bunch of lines. It just comes out of my head.
Wow.
And, yeah, I can't remember why I walked in the next room half the time, but I can do that.
Hey, man, we all have a set of skills. Just lean into whatever yours are. It's totally fine. Exactly. We can be sad about what you don't have, but then remember how many people there are in the world. Everyone's got to have something. You know what I mean? Yeah, you can't have it.
Right. So some of them can remember every lyric to every jingle they've ever heard and make, funny versions of them. And some of them can remember what they're doing next.
Yeah. Yep. I hear you, man. I also have like memory troubles.
40s, man.
I'm just like, it's fine. I can't remember what we were mad about. So, saving my marriage. It's working out. No. So I love Odyssey of the Mind. I'm like so excited that this was something that you were a part of. How did you have like theater in school, or because you're like writing these plays, like how did you even connect the idea? And then like, did you go into it, or did you get a degree in something else?
So I actually got a degree in English because, I secretly wanted to do theater, but, I wanted to make sure I was where the money was. There's no money in English either.
Yeah.
But,
the English degree. Yeah.
But I had never even considered it really, because, I was fairly shy in high school. I was just like the typical brainy, self-conscious, don't look at me, don't take my picture, and you look back on those things and you're like, I was a lovely girl. Why did I do that? But I didn't really do any formal theater until my senior year, for the senior class musical. And like, there are schools across the country who do musicals every year. They do multiple plays. I didn't go to that school. Nashua, New Hampshire had one high school. We had one play that we did once a year and only for seniors. And so, there weren't a lot of opportunities. But we were doing Grease. The year was 1992. And and so they put out auditions for it. And though I used to spend the vast majority of my time sitting in my room singing along to REM and The Cure and The Smiths and things like that, nobody really knew that I could sing. I knew deep in my heart that I could, but the auditions were posted, and a friend of mine wanted to do it, but she didn't want to go alone. She was like, "Please just go with me, Karen." And I was like, "All right, I can't dance." Which is a truth. And I can dance on your wedding dance floor and make up for my lack of talent with enthusiasm, but I am not a dancer. So I went with her, and we had singing auditions, and then we had dance, and I literally I got 3 steps and then was just like, yeah, for it. So I didn't think that I would get called back. And I was like, I'm really just doing this for moral support. It's kind of, a joke for me. I don't want to hope for anything because I'll be disappointed. And the next day they had posted that I was up for Rizzo in it. And, so this is my theater Cinderella moment. It's the most magical moment I've ever had, especially in an audition. I go to the callback, and we had to prepare the song There Are Worse Things I Could Do. And they line up, and this is a cruel way to audition people, but they line up all the Rizzo candidates on stage. And there's 4 of us. And they have number 1 sing a section of the song, number 2 sing a section, number 3 and number 4. I was number 3. So number 1 and 2 go. I do number 3, I do mine. And suddenly the entire room, the entire cafetorium erupts in applause and people standing up. And it was amazing. And I felt bad for number 4, but not too bad. And literally, I mean, I had my nerdy friends in high school, but I was not a popular kid. I was a fat kid in junior high. I had the magical teenage metabolism that alleviated that problem back in that day. But, and so I got that part. So yeah, that was a magical moment. And that was a thing where I got out there and people saw that I could do this. And it was a really great experience. And, that's when I was like, oh, I wish I had applied for theater, but where will I get a job? So yeah.
My mother wants me to work at the English factory.
Oh, Jesus. My mom wanted me to be like Miss America and a doctor and a lawyer. And, and if I was going to be a writer, it had to be famous, so sure. Yeah, I had one of those.
Yeah, I feel like the famous thing is, all over. It's a thing people strive to have and do and be.
Yeah. But it's not it's not a true measure of success. It's not the only one. It's like if you don't get famous acting or you don't get famous on SNL or something like that, somehow you have failed. But that is not what I have ever felt like in my, work in the theater. I just don't.
I think the misconception with being famous is that there's going to be some sort of solution to whatever ails you. Mm-hmm. Whatever problem you have with yourself that, your career is going to solve that problem. It's not, right?
No.
It never is your hobby or your career. Your life is your life. And it's kind of the journey of how it goes and how you take it as it goes, right? Sometimes you get what you want. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you get to be Rizzo in Grease. I'm so jealous, by the way. We did Jesus Christ Superstar, though, for my senior musical, which was definitely a good one. I was yes, right?
Yeah.
As far as Grease, A+, legit, for real. Oh man, Grease. I love Grease. My uncle actually was in a touring, show of it. And so when I was a kid, he was doing the tour and I was always that is exactly what I want to do.
Right.
I just really wanted to do everything that he did. So he was kind of like a role model for me. I had someone to look at to see like, oh, that's what you do, to continue to do it. Was there anybody in your life that, you know, sort of modeled how to be a creative and do theater and that kind of stuff? Or, you know,
not really. You know, I think that, you know, my mom was funny and could sing, but I think like she just had too much else going on with her own like idiosyncrasies and insecurities and things like that. I don't think she ever would have managed to get through the rejection part of things. Like the vast majority of the time that you audition for things, you get rejected, especially as you start out. And, you know, both of my older brothers are funny. But one is a clinical narcissist and the other was a minister. Although a few years ago, he called me and said, you know, like, you know, what do I have to do to get into the acting? And I was like, start with some community theater. Like, you live up in Maine, they must have that. So not really. I mean, I just, you know, I would meet people who also had a passion for it later on and sort of say like, I would like that kind of, you know, career and, you know, see how they got to it. You know, you end up with some peers, like whenever you're in a, you know, DC is a, you know, a smaller city in terms of like theater, but we have like over 100 companies here. And, you know, so a lot of times you go to auditions and you look around and you know who is up for the same part as you are. So you recognize your like competition, but I don't know. I stopped looking at it as competition a while ago because like I can see what they do and learn from them and they can learn from me. You know, and sometimes you're like, nope, that was exactly right. They should absolutely have hired you for that part. I would have been weird in it, you know? So yeah, not really. I mean, you know, I looked up to people on like TV and, you know, in the movies and things like that. But, you know, I mean, when the first year I went to college, I went to Boston University. And so, you know, in the English department was like just down the street from their famous theater department. But one of the good things they had there was a program called Stage Troupe, and it was for non-majors. So you could audition for plays and actually get to be in them because they were for people who were not doing that as their job. And so I did 2 shows that year and started to get to know people, but tragedy alert, I couldn't stay at BU because I couldn't afford it. And this is something that is, you know, preaching to the choir of probably everyone who's listened to this. I was the first one to go to college in my family. And so you know, my parents didn't grow up wealthy or anything. And I don't think anybody had any good concept in the late 80s, early 90s about, or at least my parents didn't, about like saving up for college for your kid. And so even though with BU, I got some grants, I got some scholarship money, just the price of it for every year, my parents could not swing it. And I am sort of glad that I didn't know how to go about getting additional loans because I would still be paying for that. So I had to transition to my state school, University of New Hampshire,
Nice.
where, yeah, I mean, I was an academic rock star there, but I didn't really get to do anything super creative. Like all of my creativity was in my writing then. And I fortunately it was a time when postmodernism in literature was very popular. So I would write like concrete stories so that they would, you know, there'd be a shape to the text. Like that's something that you see in poetry, but not in like long form stuff. I built a puzzle that you could put together in a variety of different ways so that you never had the same thing twice. And the picture sometimes made sense and it sometimes didn't. I built a set of shutters that moved up and down and the pictures would change and they were representative of one of the books that we read. But what I missed about it was that, you know, you do that alone. That's, you know, you sit up writing alone, you build your fun puzzle alone and, and then you get, you know, a moment of shining glory when you pass it in and the teacher likes it, you know? So, but yeah, so that sort of killed off my, performing career for a while. And it was a little bit before I got back into anything after I graduated and started working.
I always thought UNH had a good like arts program, because what did I do? I went to music camp there. I went to Sims, and so because I went to this music camp, which was like just, singers and musicians like for weeks, and, I figured the school had a lot of creative stuff. Not so much.
Well, I think as a transfer, and as somebody who had like a lot of work to do in their major, I think first of all, as a transfer, you don't get the sort of same orientation and introduction to all the things that are there if you hit it at the freshman year. Secondly, there were programs, and I did audition for a Shakespeare show. But when I look back on that now, they were auditioning for Midsummer Night's Dream, and I had read it in my classes and things. But as a person who's done theater for years now and knows like the process of auditioning, I did not know then how to prepare an audition whatsoever. And the kids who were already in that, like who were already at UNH in those programs, had been taught how to do it. And so I feel like I did the best I could, but I really had no idea what I was doing. And so I didn't get that, obviously, even though I decided to do Puck. It was a mess. I didn't get that. And I did audition for their improv troupe. And I'm still mad that I didn't get in, because like they laughed at my stuff. And so I had a friend who got in there, but I just, maybe I wasn't in the mindset, or maybe I just wasn't that good. And, so I went and saw their shows, but I didn't actually get to do any performing with them. So, I don't know if that was like, I don't know. I was mad about it. I say I'm still mad about it. I'm not really mad about it, but I was mad about it at the time, but then just sort of forgot about it for years.
Yeah. It can be hard, though, at the time to, like, for there to be an opportunity and then them just be like, nope, sorry, you don't get this.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like, there's a lot of difficulty in that. I've definitely felt that before, where it's like, hey, man, I also paid the tuition to come to this school. Could I have an opportunity?
Right. No, you can't. Amy, it's in the hands of a bunch of 19-year-old men, and they're all white. And they may get one girl on the troupe, but it depends on how hot she is. So that is where your opportunity goes. Yeah.
Oh, my college was nothing but Shakespeare. It was just like Shakespeare all day long. Mm-hmm. I didn't find out what improv was until many years later. Yeah. So at least at UNH there was some improv, even if you didn't get to do it, you got to watch it. So you were like aware of what it was, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, and I remember back then, the state, that troupe, came in and did a show there, and the improv troupe got to open for them. That's when I was like, So that was really cool to see them in person.
Oh my God, they were my favorite.
Yeah,
I loved them. Yeah.
Someone just linked to Barry and Levon the other day, and I laughed anew at the $240 worth of pudding.
Oh my God. So that's amazing. That's great that you got to see them. Makes sense. I feel like were they connected to New Hampshire in some way?
I don't know. I think that was just when they were, when they were on MTV and they were popular. And, so that was like sort of their heyday. And that was before they made like Wet Hot American Summer.
Right.
And all of that stuff. So yeah, they were just the weird little sketch troupe that, followed in the footsteps of Kids in the Hall and, the Mad TV folks before them. And yeah.
Oh my God. I loved them. They were definitely on my roster for sure of things that like I was super, super into. What were other things that you were into in college? Were you doing like serious plays? Like I mentioned, I was doing Shakespeare. I was also doing Greek tragedies. Don't be jealous. Don't be jealous.
No. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'll try and hold myself back. You and Euripides. Fine.
Oh my God.
Fine. Go have your time.
So much. All the comedy I got was Aristophanes. I'm like, cool, great, thanks.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This sounds
try and make it funny. Make it funny.
I'm gonna do it.
We're going to go it straight up with the original values for it. We're not going to modernize it. Try and make it funny.
You're not going to modernize it. Yeah, my college was very historical like that. They would have done something like that. I was always like, no, we're doing a lighting trick. Everyone get behind the window.
We have to give them something, you folks.
When I went abroad in college, we were in Rome, and I was like, there was not supposed to be a play, but I was determined to do a play. So I was like, everyone, we're doing a play. And they were like, all right. And I got some people to do Antigone, and I created this like light effect in the window. And like, I remember being very proud of myself, and it was like totally worked. And I was like, that's right.
Well, and you should be. When you're young, you're like, hey, man, I actually made something artistic and theatrical that wasn't just people standing on a stage.
Yeah.
You know, trying not to let their hands move too much or hang like hams from the side.
Oh, man. I feel like that's always my effort, like every day for all of my life.
Yeah, never think about your hands. Never think about your hands.
What's happening? So what happened for you after college? Like, what's the path of creativity for you? How did you get into improv?
Well, the first job I had out of college was training people in computer software. And so it was essentially an audition. So you went and, you applied, and then you have a little interview, and then you got to go home, make a 5-minute presentation about anything you wanted, and then bring it back in and give them the presentation. Most people were terrible at this. I was not. So that gave me the idea, like a lot of people came in with simple instruction sorts of things, like, this is how to program your VCR or how to make a sandwich or whatever. I came in and my interview was on Valentine's Day. So I came in with a briefcase full of Valentines that I had spent time making. And it was called, it was basically like how not to ruin Valentine's Day. So it was like what not to do with making a card. And so I would show them a card that was wrong, such as it was blue, it had brown writing, and it said nothing better came along. And on the inside, it said, so I guess, could you be my Valentine? And then I would have the ones with like red and hearts and things like that. And so I would give them, each card. I would then have them, pick some and tell me what was wrong with it and what they should do differently. And so, I totally got the job because it was funny and it was interesting. And so I spent the first 2 years of my working life standing and teaching classes on things like Word and Excel for 8 hours a day. But what I was able to do to make it interesting for me was I would make my own exercises that were silly. And I would also have jokes through the class. I would my whiteboard would have pictures on it and cartoons and things. And so, it can be really dry subject matter, but if you make even the slightest bit of effort to make it entertaining, people are going to retain more and they're not going to hate it all day. But so, doing that all day long every day, I didn't have any fuel in the tank to do anything that night, but I did get my fix of being in front of people. And, as long as you taught the curriculum, you could kind of do it any way you wanted. And so, so that helped. And then I moved on to working in web advertising. And so, you know, all of those pop-up ads that suddenly showed up in the late 90s, you're welcome. We thought those were annoying until video autoplay came along. But so yeah, I worked at a place called The Motley Fool, which also in their interview process had a chance to be creative, where they asked you like what foolishness meant to you. And so I wrote like a goofy little story. Even though they probably meant the investment type, but I was like, I'm not going to work in investing. But we got to where I got to run a contest there, for Volkswagen. They had just come out with a new bug, and they wanted to do something called the Wild Ride. And the Wild Ride was basically you would write a little essay and send us some photos about why you should get to take a new car and drive on a great vacation. And, you know, while you essentially blogged about it for us. And so I was like, I'm going to judge these. so nobody else can, you know, so I'm going to pick somebody entertaining. And, so yeah, the first person who won was a comedian from New York, and, his name, he went by Orf, and then his friend Mike the Greek. So it's like, okay, are we on a reality show? Sort of. But they got to drive up California Route 1, which is one of the most gorgeous drives on the planet. And I somehow bamboozled my way into getting to go with them for part of it. And so that was a lot of fun. And so, you know, I was like, I'm going to pick people who I think are going to be fun to go with. And like nobody wrote as good an essay as he did ever again, but I did always manage to get the people who were not boring. And I got to go on pretty much every trip for at least a couple of days.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I got to go to Western Canada. I got to go to Boston. I got to go all over the place. Midwest. Yeah. This was pretty cool. And so, you know, the next job I had was still in web advertising, but this is where the improv comes in. It's that I had, you know, I'm funny in the office. I'm quick. You know, I prefer to deal with people on a pleasant, happy basis, because otherwise we're all going to want to kill each other. And a friend of mine there said, you know, I just went and saw Comedy Sports, and you need to do Comedy Sports. And so she then pulls up the website, emails it to me, and says, look, they have classes. Tell me when you've signed up. So I signed up. And I took the 2 classes, and then there was like a special training, like somebody, you know, notable in the improv world came to do a class there. And that was Jill Bernard, maybe, from Minneapolis. And I happened to, the artistic director of that Comedy Sports and the artistic director of Washington Improv Theater were both there, and both came up and asked me, like, you know, so what are you doing right now? Are you in any troupes and things? And so Comedy Sports snapped me up, and I did that for, you know, a year or two, doing, you know, and short form is fun. It was a little bit of a classic sort of boys club, because the guys always got the primo casting. Sometimes the AD was a little bit, I don't know what she was thinking. She would set it up like it's a competition. So she would set up one team stacked with all of her best players and put everyone who was like good to you know, either brand new to like decent on the other. So it would be like a rout, which is not what people want to watch. The audience does not want to watch a team be annihilated and be like, I just have to wait for them to get through their game so I can see them again. So, you know, and I remember one time, one of the most interesting compliments I ever received in improv was one of them, you know, after I did a good show, one of the guys were like, you play like a guy, as a big compliment. Oh. Because God. I am an assertive player. I am not somebody who hangs around on the sidelines. I actually can't stand dead air. So, you know, so yeah. But then a couple of years later, Washington Improv Theater started a musical troupe called iMusical. And I was like, I've been making up songs my entire life, and this is my moment. so I drove up to go to the audition, and I almost drove away because auditions are like, they make you super vulnerable. You come in and you're asking the person to, basically agree with you that what you're doing is entertaining and, something that they want to see more of. And so I did go in, and I did a great audition, and, and I was still like, what if they don't pick me? But they did. And I spent 10 years with them making up songs. And some of the alums from there, in the first season of our show, Natasha Rothwell was on, and she's gone on to do a ton of things. She was in Love, Simon. She's on Insecure. And so I got to work with some people who, even at the beginning of their career, were fantastic. And that really raises your game. So I got to, sort of learn from some of the great people that were already there, and, and then establish this whole new thing that DC never had before.
Yeah.
And
so when you joined Washington Improv Theater, was it like a newer thing? It was like just starting?
WIT had been around for about 10 years at that point, but iMusical was brand new. We were the first ones and the first musical troupe in town here.
Oh, cool. Now, who started that? Like, how was it? Like, if nobody else was doing it, who was like, hey guys, this is a thing people are doing. I want to do it.
Yeah. So our artistic leader was and still is Travis Plager. And he used to play with Chicago City Limits. And he also, I'm blanking on the name of it, but he also played with another troupe from New York that basically made up, your next Broadway hit musical. I think that might have been close to the name. And so he's the guy on the keys improvising the music part, and also the director of the show. So, I didn't even know at the time that there was somebody who could just start. Like, I was like, oh, that's only on like Whose Line Is It Anyway that they have someone who just starts playing, but Travis can play anything. And, it just was easy. It's easy to work with him because he knows what he's doing so well. So yeah, I mean, it was pretty magical to learn how to craft improv songs and how to, use the different structures that you have, finding the freedom to come and do backup on somebody else's song. You start from this like very timid wading in to suddenly being like, we're going to make a spectacle out of this thing.
Now, how did the troupe work? Like, was it the same group of people for 10 years, or was it like an ever-changing group of people?
So for a while, there was a core group that was there. I mean, there's two people left in there now. So the group started in 2006, and I retired in 2016. But there's still two people there who were there from, well, actually just one left from the very beginning and one from the second season. And other than that, we had some stability probably till like around 2009, 2010. There was a lot of the same people. And then, folks move, folks decide to do something else, so we had
it's unbelievable that you guys could have been together as one group for 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, there were 4 or 5 of us who were there for most of the time, and but then it starts to really reconstitute. And by the time I left, there were a lot of most of the players were newer, and I am still sad that I had to leave because I didn't really want to, but having a theater company and also being cast in plays where you're out for, weeks at a time from rehearsal is really hard on the group. And it's not really fair if they're there rehearsing every single week. I wish they got paid for that. I mean, so much of improv is a voluntary thing. And, I understand better than most how finances work in the arts world. So if you paid all of your players, you wouldn't be able to do anything. but I could understand why it was a rough time leaving, because I love it so much. And, I wished that I could just have all of the things that I wanted. But by then there was like a largely different group. And now, 5 years later, like there are just the two guys that I used to play with, and everybody else is different. So it's like this new generation, and I spent a lot of time in that group. I started off sort of timid at first, and then I was I'm just going to say it, I was a powerhouse in that group for many years. And, I had a lot of people who would come to see the show because I was in it, which is an enormous compliment. I ran into people in public places in DC who had seen the show and remembered me. It was awesome. Like, there's no better feeling than having done something that like someone found touching enough or memorable enough than to say that and then say they wanted to see more improv. That's an awesome thing. I'm glad to have done those things. And it's also very weird when someone repeats back improv lyrics you made up. So it's weird, but I love it.
Yeah, I loved that. That was my favorite. Mm-hmm. I had a musical improv troupe for a little while called Water Park. And right after the show, people would like wait out front and like sing us whatever our like final song was.
It's
and it was
so
just
fun.
Like so cool. Like, we made that. That earworm you have is from us. Like,
I know. For some reason, one of the ones I had repeated back more than 3 times was when I sang a song about a bathtub full of cats. But the visual was really cool. What my troupe mates did around the song, becoming the cats and the bathtub, was pretty damn cool. But I love I love the theatricality of musical improv. I love that. Yeah. I almost love making people cry more than making them laugh, because like, to make up a song out of nowhere that actually hits people and makes them feel something, that's like magic, and I don't use that word lightly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was a great run. Fortunately, I get to do, I still get to do music every so often, not in the last year and a half or so for obvious reasons.
Sure.
I have a small troupe called Vox Pop, which is me and one of the other original cast members of my musical. He moved up to New York, for which I'll never forgive him. But but we made a little troupe before he left that we just did an improv competition with, and now we've done festivals all over the place. So we've done Chicago. We did Del Close. We've done the New York Musical Improv Festival several times, and we've done stuff down here in DC. But I would love to do more festivals. It's just so hard to fly around to them when, he has a kid and like I have a company, and like how to ever make the timing work and, and spend the funds to be able to, jet off to, the dream, the Hawaii Improv Festival and sing to them.
Yeah. I feel like it's like what you were saying before, which was, your 40s, right?
Yeah.
Like, I used to somehow have this money to like just go take planes to wherever and like,
I'm going to take class for a week here in this other city.
Yeah. Hey guys, by the way, I'm going here. It's like, what? Now it's like, I got to check with like 47 people. Like, there's a whole thing. Like, no. I'm not going anywhere without a lot of time and a lot of preparation, right?
Right.
And so it must be super hard. I love that you guys did some touring of festivals in the before times.
Yes.
I wonder, to be honest, I am going to find a way to make a little bit of touring happen once I feel comfortable in the global scale. Like, currently, not so much. I feel like I don't know what's happening in the rest of the world. But at the same time, like, once it feels better, I've connected with so many people online that I feel like I need to go visit them in their cities and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, there's a lot of that where it's like, I've just been talking to these people and I'm like, man, I got to get to Amsterdam. Like, what is happening? Like, I need to teach a workshop.
Like, a foreign improv place. Like, I would love to go and see what that is like.
Yeah, hang out with the people who you talk to every day on the internet. I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like my whole thing is just, at this point, global improvisers, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The environment got so full when COVID started. Everyone was kind of around. And that was really great.
We need some kind of connection with people who can talk about this thing. That's why I like that improvisers talking about food thing, because there's people from all over the world on that.
Yeah. All over the world. Yeah. Best one. Best
Facebook pictures group. Of food. It's like, oh, 2 of the things I love most. Great. Gimme.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's because of that group and because of the people that I've met where I'm like, I need to start traveling the world, right? Figure out how to, make that happen and do that kind of thing. Have you and your troupe mate been doing anything online with Vox Pop?
No. The one of the worst things about the pandemic for me, especially artistically, is that singing does not work on Zoom. You can do, there's a lot of technical stuff you could do if you had the equipment and stuff to make it better, but it's mostly a train wreck. So, I mean, the best you can get is someone to record a track, you sing over that track, the other person sings over, you in that track, and that's how you make something. And that is not improvisation. That's writing a song.
Yeah.
And, I've done some songwriting of my own, but, and improv itself is just really challenging. And I applaud everybody who is doing it and doing their Zoom, Hollywood Squares, kind of, face thing along the top. But
I love the Hollywood Squares of it, honestly.
Yes. The circle takes the square and circle freezes for 5 minutes and then comes to life jerkily and then, looks like some kind of weird robot because their mouth doesn't match up with what they're saying. And editing a scene, talking over, problems talking over people when you're on stage standing in front of each other. Never mind that. So I have watched some improv. I have appreciated what everybody has been doing. I would not enjoy doing it. It's just it's similar to, my theater company hosted one reading, and a reading is about as good as it's going to get. And there still was a moment when somebody were like, did they just forget to say their line or are they frozen? And you have to open up all the windows and peek and everything. So we did that, but there's theaters in the area who have done Zoom plays, and there are some that have done have recorded stuff that they've done on stage. But for me, the reason that I love improv and live theater is the live nature of it. When you do comedy, you need to hear people laughing because then you're there together. What I love about any kind of live performance is that the audience is there with you and you are sharing a singular moment. You're breathing with them, which is now the most dangerous thing you can do, but you're breathing together. Sometimes in really tense moments in a play, the audience's breaths will start to match up or heartbeats and stuff. And that is an incredible connection where you don't have to actually physically, even talk to anybody else. You're just experiencing this. And it's that feedback of the communication of knowing we're all in here and we're here right now and we're not focusing on anything else. If I am acting a role, I am this person right now and this has never happened before and we're all discovering it together. That's what I find powerful. I don't find powerful being on a screen and not knowing, anybody, if anybody is watching, if anything you're doing is actually affecting anyone. It feels so alienating. And so I cannot wait until such a time where we can be together in that space again.
Yeah.
And where you can have that experience together, that thing that doesn't happen very often in life.
I love live theater. I love the space of being in the room with people. I mean, I of course love All Eyes on Me. I mean, like number one. I love All Eyes on Me. Number two.
Anyone who says otherwise is lying.
No. I mean, I believe other people who don't have this kind of thing, but no, I love it. I could have any amount of people in front of me and I could talk to them very comfortably. I love it so much. And I appreciate what you're saying. Like, totally. I love the energy in the room when we're all feeling the same thing, or like, we're moving with something all together. There is something so great about that. And, I've done theater my whole life, and just really, that's something that I've enjoyed immensely, is like being in the moment. I mean, we were talking a moment ago about how I'm losing my memory, right? But it's because I'm in the moment, right? Like, and I love that thing. And what's funny is, like, I don't remember stuff except for there's a few moments where I remember being there and being like, remember this right now.
Right.
And I do. So, like, that works, guys. That's a thing. You should do that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, 10 years, I made up thousands of songs. I remember a few of them. And I remember it because of the way it felt with the audience, not because I felt clever or that like these songs were particularly funny, but I remember how it felt in the room.
Yeah.
And it was, is like, these sort of magical moments that, that's the only word I can think of about it. And there's only that. I mean, it's this concept of flow when you're able to be completely absorbed in what you're doing and not thinking about or worrying about anything else. And there are a few things in life that I have that with, and they almost all involve performing.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I 100% agree with all that. Like, I just really enjoy being able to, connect with other people in a room. Yeah. Oftentimes these days it's more in a hosting capacity, but that's okay. I'll take it.
I know.
Any moments that I can take where I can be like, all eyes on me? What's up?
Right.
Hey guys, right. What's up? How are you?
Hold on to your seats.
Oh, man. So you were talking about these magical moments. Tell me, what is it about performing and whatnot that keeps you coming back to it? What's the thing that holds you?
I think in part, you have I both produce, I act, and I also sing. And a lot of the singing I've done has been, in a theatrical show. But from the producing standpoint, you have the way that everything starts and comes together. So you start with this idea, you either want to do a show and develop it, or you have a play that you want to do. And when you choose something, it's always because it says something to you, and it says something that you feel you need to get out there. Now, personally, sometimes I just want something that's entertaining and is not a heavy night at the theater. And sometimes you really, really want to have some kind of dialogue with the world about something that is happening. So in my company, Pinky Swear, it's a feminist theater company. And so, we're evolving, but the initial thing was like, we hire women. Full stop. If there's going to be two candidates, we're going to hire the woman. We don't have a lot of women in certain types of design and engineering in theater. So we're going to go find them and hire them. We have now evolved to making sure that we're doing any kind of underrepresented gender. But we want to take this out of like white dudes' hands and be able to put it, be able to provide the opportunity for expression to a lot of people. And so you get to hire this group of people to then bring this thing to life. You get to see all these people bring their talents into the room to audition, to make these offerings of like, I offer you my interpretation of this. And it's all good, whether they get hired or not. I cannot tell you how much I enjoy having people come in and audition and show me what they're doing, show me who they are. And, there's never been somebody who came in who didn't have something true to offer. And so you get to craft this show from the ground up. You have an empty place. Suddenly it's full of people and it's full of lights and it has a set and they're wearing clothes and they're, and there are sound effects happening. That's pretty cool. And from a performance standpoint, it is this chance to be in a room with people who are all have the common goal of creating something from nothing and who are all committed to living the lives of whoever the characters are, to find that human connection that I think theater is uniquely good at. And so whether it's a rock and roll cabaret, which we created a whole bunch of that were sort of like sassy, little bit of audience interactive, sexy cabarets, where we'd ask the audience a question every time. And one of them was like, what's the weirdest place you've had sex? And I would pull these answers from a fishbowl and then, make fun of the answers or riff on them and stuff. Super fun. But you're getting people to give you a little piece of themselves and you're having this interaction and everybody's interested to hear what everybody else has done. And so whether it's something like that or whether it is something like a show that I did called The Events, and I was part of the ensemble, and it was originally a Norwegian play about a mass shooting that happened up there. It was like the worst mass shooting in their history and one of the worst mass shootings in all history. I think it was something like 80 people. And, so the story was, a woman who was, so it's fictionalized of it, but like a woman who was the leader of a choir and many of her choir members were shot. And then she is dealing with like this guy who is the person who did the shooting, but he acts in a bunch of different roles of people as she is trying to find more people to understand why this kind of thing happened. And so that show was extremely powerful. And, my job in it was to, sing some songs with the chorus of people and to do some movement work, to portray both, what life was like before the shooting and during the shooting and after the shooting. And so I didn't have a heavy duty, job with lines, but like the audience was just awestruck and our two leads were fantastic. So it was important. And so our cabarets were awesome and fun. This one felt necessary. So there's that. And there's other things like innovation. We did shows. There was a little tiny house neighborhood that popped up in the middle of DC. So we talked to the people who owned the houses and we did a series of plays in those tiny little houses, and had people moving through the neighborhood all night. And so getting to do something that no one else has done, getting to do something that creates an opportunity for people to look at things differently or confront things, or just sit back and sing along with whatever you're doing. Like it's all connection. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Long story short, it's all about connection, which we don't have. Like right now, we're all starving for it. And, even in the before times, it's so easy not to make that connection. It's so easy not to be vulnerable. And so, yeah, gosh, I want that back.
Yeah. I think there's something really interesting about, lessons to be learned during this time about what you need. So how have you been doing creativity in your life now? So is there anything creative that you're doing? It doesn't have to be performance, but what creative things are you doing right now that are like stoking the fires?
Well, this year I've taken over 100 hours in classes. So I took the opportunity to do more training, which I haven't done in years. So I took a directing class and I took a whole bunch of workshops. It was primarily Shakespeare workshops, but I also took an auditioning class. And the latest thing has been a creative writing. I took a class and now I'm in a writer's group with some of the other alumni. And that has, so way back in college when I was an English major, I did a ton of writing. It was, a lot of it was literary criticism. It was also a big time for personal essay literary criticism. So, saying that basically all criticism is subjective and why not tell a little of my story to explain why I see this in such and such book or poem. And so I did that, a ton. I had done creative writing in high school and things. I'm sure I would giggle fondly at what I wrote. But it used to be something that was my wheelhouse. That's what I did in school. And so, just getting back to do something that sort of hit a different facet of my creative brain. And so I did this class. It was 10 weeks long. And the objective was to begin or finish writing a short story. And so I did that, and the nice thing about a class is that you can't just procrastinate and not show up for it, because you have made a contract with the other people there that you are there for each other. And so, you're not just going to go off and at least I didn't want to skip it because it was nice to see people. I
feel you. I appreciate students like you. That's nice. It's always nice to feel appreciated and to feel like a person honors their commitments. There is a lot of people who do not, but I appreciate it when you do. So don't feel embarrassed by that at all.
No. I am the student I want to see in others.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, why are you, if you're not trying to enrich yourself, why are you taking this class?
Right. Why did you spend the money on it?
Yeah.
What is it? So, I found out actually the teacher is an improv person from Austin, who I took the class with. That's Natalie Grigson, who's down there. And the class is great. I wrote a story. And then, the feedback I got was that everyone wanted more of what was happening there. So I have now turned it into, it was initially an 8-page story, and I have 43 pages now. So in the writers group, I have expanded it and suddenly found myself writing a complicated, interweaving storyline, sort of novel or novella. And whether anything ever happens with it is immaterial. I just am happy to have the exercise of writing it. I'm, of course, glad when my colleagues like it. But, the objective is creativity for creativity's sake. Yeah. If I finish it and want, I know a bunch of published authors, YA and noir authors. And so, I may ask them to, be a coach and read it for me at some point, hire them to do that. But I don't expect to ever the thing that I like about what I'm doing with it is that I am not expecting to then sell it and have a published novel and stuff, because that's a very different, it's a very different experience when you're sort of hell-bent on getting this final product that then gets the kind of recognition that you want. I am enjoying writing this thing and exercising a muscle that I had let atrophy for years.
Yeah.
So it's good to do that. And then, and then I can look back at it and say, I had the follow through to actually write 43 pages, maybe write 43 more and see what happens.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, all it can do is continue to help your creativity. For you to do the action of just writing it and letting your brain, chomp on this idea, it could literally just be the framework for the next thing that you're going to do. That's like the thing, right?
Yeah.
Plus, like, you know, I feel like we were talking earlier about this idea of famousness, right? And how it's not the end all be all, but even in the undercurrent of what we say, it is, you know what I mean? Like, we can't even help it. This idea that, like, what we're doing, we have to defend it. We have to, like, create this scenario where it's like, hey, but I think it's okay. You know why? Because it is okay. Like, there is no actual difference. Like, and the other thing about famousness is, like, yeah, we're older, so, like, the idea of who's famous and who's not makes more sense because it was more delineated. You know, these are people who are getting millions of dollars to, like, be on a television show. And then, you know, and you can be like, whoa, that's totally insane. But then you're like, can I look at the accounting sheet of, like, all the money that went through NBC at the time? Well, yeah, it seems fine. It seems fine. Give it to him, right? Whatever. Yeah. But, like, you know, famous is not the end all be all. And these days, especially with the internet, there's sort of been a divide of what really is famous, because sometimes people are famous for like 30 seconds. Sometimes they're famous to a niche audience. Like, how many times have you been like looking at something on the internet and like some friend of yours or whatever is like, have you seen this person? They just told me to buy this thing and I'm going to buy it. And I'm like, I don't know who that is.
No,
and I don't know what the thing is and the product that they're trying to sell you. Like, I have no idea, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's so many famous like YouTubers and TikTokers, and I guess I just don't go down the YouTube rabbit hole in that way. Like, you'd have to be hitting something that I was specifically interested in for me to stumble across you anyway. And then, like, I don't think it's going to be like a dude bro who, like, you know, plays practical jokes on his mom, which is one of the ones that I did see at one point. And
you know what, though? The interesting thing about the algorithm is you're only getting things in front of you that they think that you're going to like based on other things that you've already seen. And if they think that something is doing well, it'll start crossing into other groups to see if it's going to work. Right. And like, for instance, one of my favorite, I don't watch YouTube. Like, I'm not like one of those people who's like on YouTube all the time. I'm really not. I don't watch like individual videos. I'm a big TV person.
Yeah, me too.
And, I watch shows, but, and I commercials occasionally, you know, with the hula. But I'm not a person who watches YouTube very often, but there are certain things that pass in front of me based on whatever I've watched. And there was the twin brothers who they're young and it's a reaction video. Like, I don't love all the like unboxing reaction, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
But it's
I watched this guy play video games
for the first time, right?
But yeah, they're playing. Yeah. And you know, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And they're viral. They're just these kids who like are young. And so of course they've never heard these songs, right?
Like the
and
Phil Collins song
like,
and everything.
Yes, that exact one.
And Dolly Parton. Yeah.
Oh my God. So funny. Yeah. And I love them. And I love them so much for their like pure, honest reactions in the moment. Like, they'll be like, oh yeah. Oh, I like where this is going. Like, and then they're like, oh no, she's in trouble. No, that's not good. You shouldn't say that. Like,
don't do her like that, Jolene.
Yeah, Jolene. Oh no, this is not good. Oh, this is, yeah, it's so funny. Like, but they're so great and pure and wonderful.
They're authentic.
But here's the thing. I don't know how it passed through. Somebody was looking at it. It got into my algorithm, whatever. Am I looking at YouTube videos? No. Why was I on YouTube? Probably to do some random, like, find some random comedy video. That's usually what I'm doing. I'm usually trying to find comedy videos to show my classes that I teach. I teach high schoolers and 8-year-olds, improv and sketch comedy.
That's a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah, they are. Hey man, you take the jobs you get offered, right?
Right.
So if they're like, hey, you want to teach 8-year-olds? You're like, love that. Let's do it. And you're like, how do you feel about 17? My super fave. Let's do it. 17, loving them. Like,
right.
Whatever. I don't care. Who are you? You want to talk about theater? Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. One final question. I just wanted to ask you, what is the advice you might give to, people who are starting out, who want to be creative? How do they find their way in the world? Mm-hmm. What's the, corners that you look for, or spaces where you think you can find good, solid friends and do fun theater?
Well, there's a couple of things. I would say don't be afraid to admit that you are a beginner. And I think there's a lot of times when people are like, a beginning class, but I've taken a beginning class at another place.
Yeah.
You can always learn something new. One of my favorite classes to teach, like I taught musical improv and I taught beginning, like level 1 improv. And I could have taught other classes, but I like level 1 because you're all coming in together. Whether you've had a little experience and, the guy who's just taken a break from his law office has, never done this before, you're all coming in, you are making yourselves vulnerable, and, and that's where you start. And I think any class should really, anytime you go into a class, you should start with that. I may know nothing about this, but I'm going to find out. I'm going to find out more. So be humble and don't think that like you should skip all the classes and head right on stage, because you develop your community through classes. You develop valuable skills that you wouldn't have had if you didn't go through and just kind of learn by repetition, and also learn by working with different people. We all want to work with the ace on stage. We all want to go up to the person who seems to always, be on fire, but you have to work your way up to that. And, so classes are a great thing. And also with my taking classes this year, I would say is admit when you need to brush up, take the opportunity in this great intermission we've had in the last year or so. Take the opportunity to, look at what you haven't tried in years. Look at things that you're doing and maybe freshen up those skills. Taking auditioning was great right now because it made me get some new monologues. And it also made me learn how to do self-taping that didn't look terrible. And so, and so from your classes, you develop community, and also don't be afraid to go to jams and things like that, because you also then get to know, and you might meet somebody who you love playing with. And then maybe you'll make a practice troupe, or maybe you'll make a little, permanent troupe and start trying to do things. And then artistically, I think one of my biggest things that has helped me, and one of the biggest things that I ever did, was not to be afraid to start your own damn thing. So you don't need anybody's permission. I didn't need anybody's permission to make a theater troupe and start producing plays. I happen to have the benefit of the Capitol Fringe Festival in DC, making it a very low and inexpensive barrier to entry to do that. And so, my friends and I were going to put on one show. And the one show was a response to the crappy ass parts that we saw in the previous festival. One of the plays we saw, a friend of ours was in, and it was a terrible play. And it was like one schlumpy dude surrounded by all of these hot women actresses that, they had hired for it. And even the lesbian with the eye patch and a little knife, for no reason that I could discern, was into this guy. So it was so dumb. So we were like, our friend acted in that. We need to make a better opportunity. So we did. We were only ever going to do it once, but that's intoxicating to take control. And to, so now, 13 years later, 13 years after that pinky swear that we did for the show, I still have something that I'm really proud of. And it's something where, if you have the wherewithal to raise the funds, or, and get like-minded people together and take risks, I don't know that I'm prouder of anything that I've ever done, as much as I am what, me and my troupe mates have managed to accomplish with this. Because we've said a whole bunch. We've done all kinds of things that I would never, there's a lot of acting roles I probably wouldn't get now if I hadn't had the experience just casting myself and stuff before. And, people can call it a vanity project all they want. But guess what? A lot of people have enjoyed this, and I have given a lot of people jobs, paid jobs in theater, because I didn't ask permission and I didn't care if anybody thought it was vanity. And so that's the thing. Don't be afraid to make your own thing. If you've auditioned for improv troupes and you're not getting in, get some friends together and just do improv together. Get a coach to come in and work with you on it. It's not that expensive to do, and you get to do something fun in the interim. And whether you end up on a stage with thousands of people applauding and laughing for you or not, you're getting to do the art that you enjoy. And you're not taking all those no's and thinking, no, I can't do this now. Of course you can. It's for all of us. So yeah, take it on, make it yours.
I love that. I think that's so important. I think absolutely doing whatever you want to do and not letting the fact that you think there isn't an opportunity for you, just put it up. I remember putting up plays in storefronts and just random fields, and people are like, what are you doing? It's we wanted to do this play, so we're gonna.
Mm-hmm. And 10 people might show up, but we did it, and those 10 people saw this.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, I feel like when you're young, I mean, I don't know about you, but I ran with big crowds when I was young. So it was always easy to get a crowd because it'd be like, hey, everyone, we're doing this play over here. And they're like, okay. And they all just show up.
That's right. Well, we will always say big cast, big audience, because all of their friends will come. But yeah, that's the hardest. That's the hardest part in small theater is putting butts in seats. But you learn over time what does work and try to lean in that direction. And then there are those times where this may have small audiences, but they're going to be massively impacted by this. So let's do it the way we're doing it. But yeah, I know. All your friends come out, when you first get into improv, they're all there at every show. And then you're in your 40s and they're like, we'll see you once this run.
Yeah, they don't care. They're like, listen, I can't. Mm-hmm. I can't leave my house after 5.
Right.
I have the twins. They just won't go to sleep. Right. Oh man, it's terrible. It's terrible. Well, your community is lucky to have you because it is not an easy thing to run a company, to put the effort in, to organize it, to get people together, to wrangle it. You and I both know theater people aren't always the most organized.
No.
Yeah. And, so when you really want to get something like this done, it can be hard to get it done. So good on you for getting it done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, it matters that you care and that you're trying to put yourself out there and help people and just create opportunities for other people. I think that's the most important thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, somebody has to do it. And sometimes after you say that for a while, you're like, well, maybe it's me. Maybe that's the one.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus, if you can have fun and also make sure other people are having fun too, I figure that's pretty great.
Yeah, it's not a bad life.
Oh my God. Thank you, Karen, so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate you talking to me.
Oh gosh, it's my pleasure, Amy. And I really just enjoyed talking shop and talking about the creative life because I've missed it so much. So it makes me feel more connected and more like there's light at the end of the tunnel. Absolutely. Just by getting to talk about it.
Yeah. There's always time in every creative's lives when you have to take time off. I had a boyfriend one time who for some reason in the 2 years we dated, I didn't do one bit of theater. And the idea of that should make you what do you mean? Because my life is so just theater, right? Mm-hmm. And so moments like this, when you can't do it, when you can't go out and get involved in it, and even having my baby when he was little, taking that time off, I've tried to be zen with it because I'm still the creative person that I always will be and can do online classes and stuff like that. And also, by the way, I'm taking that Natalie Grigson writing class as well. So You know,
Yay.
yeah, I'm enriching myself. We're enriching ourselves. We're trying to be better artists and create a better community for everyone. You're doing great. I'm having a great time with you. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast, and have a great evening.
All right. You too. Thanks again for inviting me.
Thanks for listening to Yes But Why Podcast. Check out all our episodes on yesbutwhypodcast.com, or check out all the content on our network, HC Universal, at hcuniversalnetwork.com.